Thinking about Palm Sunday and Holy Week, maybe Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, and certainly Easter Day, Resurrection Sunday. And I love to know all that there is to know about Jesus. And when I'm opening up the book, the Bible, and reading about Palm Sunday, I see that Jesus and all his Jewish friends were making their way up to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. But I don't know really what Passover is, do you? So I thought it might be a good idea if we went to our Jewish friends, to Rabbi Rubin, to find out more about Passover and what was going on and what the meaning is for them, so that we can better understand what Jesus and all his friends were up to when they were doing that. So that's where we're off to today. We're off to find out a little bit more about Passover. So we've been hearing a lot about the significance of Passover and gaining a really good understanding of its place in Judaism as well. And what I'd love to know as we sit here as friends, what I'd love to know for you is, for you as a person, what is the meaning of Passover for you, or for Pesach, as you were explaining?
Okay, so let's start with the practicalities. The worst announcement I can make at home, or usually my father-in-law does it. He sends out a WhatsApp or text to everyone to say 6 weeks to Pesach or 4 weeks to Pesach, and that is when everyone starts getting all nervous and reply, why did you do that? And basically, what we have to do is we have to basically change our kitchen. So you change your kitchen. So during Pesach, you mustn't eat any kind of leavened food. So you don't have bread, you can't have cereals, you can't have anything that has any mixture of this kind of food. And not only can you not eat the actual food, but any dishes that we use to cook or to eat from, you mustn't even own it. So we have a whole process of how we get rid of it. We don't throw it out. We don't throw out our bone china dishes or pots and pans. We have a process. So we basically sell it to a non-Jewish person who has no restrictions, and they own it and they deal with it, and after Pesach we'll buy it back. It's a process that we do every year, and it is a legally binding thing, so we don't own it. But then we change all our dishes. We have to, what we call kosher our kitchen, to make it Pesach ready, which is a 1 or 2 day process, which is a bit of a nightmare, but we get through, we do it. It's an annual crisis, but it's fun. And it's very much when the children are younger. I would say for my children, their memories and of the Jewish cycle, the highlight would be being able to stay awake at night as Tati, who I am, Daddy, makes the big changeover, because you have to wash, you have to clean. So that is leading up to Pesach. And then you always encourage us, and I encourage my members to spend a few hours, a few days, a minute or so before you sit down to your Seder night, and just work out what your theme is going to be. Okay. What are you going to be focusing? Life is so wild, and it's so varied, and there's so much going on, and there's so much to reflect on that you can get overwhelmed. So just take something, whether it's about how to raise your family in 2024, or how do you, there's so much to be focusing on. So that's something that I try to do. Different families do it different ways. I am usually the leader of the Seder. So I sit there and I lead, and we read, and I will give explanations and stories and ideas. And every so often we'll stop and I'll ask the children if they have their views, or my guests. Other families, they actually, before this, a few weeks before, they might invite a whole bunch of people, friends or family, and they will dish out the honor. Okay. So as you deal with this, so the Seder, the order, it's called Seder means order. The order is 15 steps. Okay. So there's 15 different things happening. So they might hand out the 50, they'll take 2, another person take 3. Or they might take different sections of the actual Haggadah reading. There's a long part that we just read the story, which begins of when we were just, living somewhere in Mesopotamia, and then we became this nation. But to me, as every year there's always crises around. There's always stories around. There's always difficulties. Always things that's difficult to make sense of. For me, Seder night is a time that I could, like during COVID, the whole Seder night. It somehow worked out that I was speaking. We had 3 children at home, and that's all we had. My wife and I, and 3 children.
But you're saying that's all we had, because actually, how many children have you?
We're blessed with a large family. We're blessed with 8 children. At the time, there was only 5 married, and now there's 6 married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But they couldn't. Usually, there were 1 or 2 would come and spend time be with us. They couldn't that year, so it was just the 3 of us, and it was interesting that most of the thoughts, the reflections we had, was all about that lockdown, being isolated, and how that relates to the Seder, to Pesach, to the story. So you find that, and I'm sure this year we'll have our reflections, especially what's going on with Israel and Gaza. That will be very much on our minds, and, with the hostages and the people who are suffering in Gaza. And I know for sure, I haven't yet gotten into the mindset, but I know for sure it'll be very much focused on that, about our responsibilities, our relationship, and our belief that people want good, and things will be good. How we get them, the hand of God is somewhere in all of it. There is always, my mother's dad was a Holocaust survivor, and somehow we bring in his story into the evening. But it's fascinating, because we're talking about celebrating an event that, as I said earlier, celebrating an event that happened thousands of years ago. But it resonates so much today and every year, right? And that's how we reflect it, and that's how we just. And we can't run away from, we can't say this is the past. It is so much the current, and we believe the future.
Wow, it's really full, really rich, isn't it? And I'm so thankful to you for taking the time with us to give us a bit, not just a bit of an understanding, to give us a really rich and deep understanding of actually what Pesach involves and what the Seder is in its place, not just in that festivity time, but actually in your life and in the generations as well.
I have to say that it sounds very heavy. It sounds really heavy. It's not at all
Is
heavy.
it not?
It's a lot of chatting, a lot of laughing, and if there's a Seder table and because we have part of the Seder is having 4 cups of wine or grape juice in my case, if a cup hasn't spilled and everyone laughed, then it hasn't really been a Seder. There's a lot of singing. Every family has their own tunes. And when my second son got married, so the tradition is that the children get married, and the first Pesach after their marriage, they would spend time with the wife's family.
Okay.
And then the second one, if they're still traveling or something, they will come to the husband's family.
Right.
So when my second son got married, so my older son said to him, he said, I want you to know that when you spend your Pesach with your in-laws, they're going to have different songs. And you're going to find out that the songs that you sing at home are unique. And they don't know it. They might allow you to teach the tune, they might not allow you. And it's beautiful. And I remember my son who, again, during COVID it happened. So he had to do usually he would do the Seder with his in-laws, because he lives around the corner from them in America. And the next night he would do with his sister, my daughter, who also living nearby. So when they did it together, they did the Rubin style. But after the COVID, he had to do his own Seder, his own thing. And he phoned me up afterwards. He said, I made sure to get the book you use. And I was really moved by that. Wow. And he said, we did it the way you would be proud of.
Oh, that's
And I
lovely.
think that is what we call tradition. That what we call continuity, and that is what we call roots, and that's what we call that we can, and that is what the world really needs.
Yeah.
And I think that is what Pesach is about.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for
Okay.
everything and
No
for
problem.
sharing a little bit of the celebration and joy
Yeah.
of Pesach with us as well.
It was
Thank
a lot
you.
of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. What fascinating insights from Rabbi Rubin about Pesach or Passover. One of the interesting things I found that he mentioned was about this whole concept of continuity, that it was passed throughout the generations, and actually how each family had its own tradition. It changed throughout the years and still was able to continue and is able to continue and will. And that reminds me of things for us, because now how they celebrate Passover, how the Jews celebrate it, will be different than how Jesus and his disciples were celebrating it. It's grown and evolved, and for us who are then grafted in, it's not about replacing what has been going on before, but about letting it grow and having that continuing to run through it and celebrating it in our own way too, and with our own ways, which is exactly what we are hoping to do for our celebration of the Passover Seder on Thursday night, which I'm really hoping that you're able to join us for at 7 o'clock, where we'll enjoy all those cups that Rabbi Rubin talks about, and hopefully we'll not be doing any spilling, but you never know. So hope that you will be able to join us there.